Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Definition, aka your friendly neighborhood spoiler man, and this episode we're breaking down Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Whenever someone says that the MCU movies are just theme park rides, this is the film I point to. The political spy thriller is filled to the brim with subtext, social commentary and Easter eggs that easily make it one of the best movies that Marvel has ever made. What's more is that the film gets even better after you binge watch the Infinity Saga, and throughout this video we're going to be pointing out the best details that only come to fruition after you've seen every movie from Iron Man all the way up to Far From Home. Some of these Easter eggs may have popped up in other videos, but I guarantee there's a couple here that you haven't seen before, so make sure you stick around until the end. There will be heavy spoilers here, so if you aren't fully caught up on all 23 films, then I highly recommend that you snap yourself out of here. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit that like button as it massively helps us out, and make sure you subscribe for a Marvel movie breakdown every week. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Okay, so in The Winter Soldier, we learn that Bucky actually survived his fall in the prior film. He was found by Hydra and experimented on, leading to him becoming a twisted version of Captain America. Instead of a shield, he has a metal arm, but there's also some amazing shots laced throughout the movie that subtly hint at the similarities between the two. If you've been watching our other breakdowns, then you'll know we always examine the parallels between certain moments, and though you might not notice them, your subconsciousness definitely does. This allows you to draw conclusions over the character arcs, and no more of these examples more present in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. The angle in which Cap was first created also mirrors the angle in which we approach Bucky as we join him having his memory wiped. A shot of Bucky also mirrors one of Cap's final journey in the first Avenger, and the two both visit the Howling Commandos display wearing similar clothing. Throughout the MCU, there are shots that have been purposely chosen to show similarities between the two, and I believe that these have been put in place to show how they are basically a mirror image of one another. Similar to Cap, Bucky is a man out of time that has been selected for specific missions, and thanks to his super soldier serum, he completes them with ease. However, whereas Cap was working predominantly for S.H.I.E.L.D., Bucky was working predominantly for Hydra, who just also happens to be within S.H.I.E.L.D. Anyway, these are some amazing little parallels between the two that remind you of just how similar that they are, and why Cap would eventually go against the Avengers in order to save his friend in Civil War. Civil War itself also has several callbacks to this film, most namely the interactions between Bucky and Cap. Steve says, "You know me" in Winter Soldier, before asking, "Do you know me" in Civil War. He also tries to tell him that he's his friend when calming him down, which too is a reason that he gives Stark as to why he's protecting the character. Bucky even puts his arm around skinny Steve and says, "Come on man," and leads him away, which is also similar to how the two leave at the end of Civil War. These aren't the only shots in the movie that reference other things either, as in our Iron Man 3 video we discussed how Tony and Cap both had pretty similar arcs throughout their trilogy. I don't want to just recap what I said in that breakdown, but this film reminds us of Cap's sacrifice at the end of the first Avenger. He kept a photo of Peggy as he crashed the Hydra plane on what was seemingly a one-way ticket, and this was echoed in Tony, who tried to reach out to Pepper as he potentially flew to his death in order to get the nuke away from New York. Whereas Tony got to go home to her, Steve was frozen in the ice, and it would take a long time before he was able to truly hold Peggy in his arms once more. Speaking of long time, we actually hear the song Long Time by Kitty Callan playing in Steve's apartment in the movie, and this song returns for the final dance between him and Peggy at the end of Endgame. In Winter Soldier, we actually learn that Peggy has dementia, and during her conversation with Steve, there are a lot of things that hint towards his actions in Endgame. Firstly, she says the best thing we can do is start over, and Steve would of course do this at the end of that film. Now, depending on what time travel theory you subscribe to for Endgame, may also add some cool little details here. Whilst the Russos disagree, the writers of the movie say that Steve always went back and lived out his life with Peggy, and this is why her husband's identity was hidden throughout the movie. Peggy reacts in a way that seems to be almost how she would have reacted upon seeing him return at the end of that film, and it is possible that this was deliberately set out like this. The writers themselves said that they planned out Steve's time travelling all the way back in the first Avenger, and that this is why they laced so many lines about the last dance throughout it. Though it contradicts the understanding of how the Russos laid out time travel in Endgame, if Steve was always meant to go back, then this would mean that no branch timelines would be created, and thus this line still rings true.
Yeah. You're alive. You came back. It's been so long. So long.
Well, I couldn't leave my best girl. Not when she owes me a dance.
During Civil War, we also learn that Agent 13 is actually the niece of Peggy Oh, wait, you kissed your own niece? What? However, there's also a line that hints towards this in The Winter Soldier, when Sharon says that she's been on the phone to her aunt, who has insomnia. Insomnia is a common symptom of dementia, and this is a nice little Easter egg that shows Marvel knew exactly what they were doing with the character. Peggy isn't the only character alongside Bucky to return from the first Avenger either, and in the movie we meet the AI recreation of Arnim Zola. Zola had his consciousness uploaded to a machine after defecting to the US and building Hydra within S.H.I.E.L.D. The machine was actually shown in the background of Endgame, and Zola was seen for a split second in the film when Steve and Tony were sneaking around the base. In addition to all of this, Zola's appearance as a screen was actually hinted at in the first Avenger, with a nice bit of foreshadowing that suggested the way that things were going to happen. I told you, these Marvel guys don't miss a beat. When Zola is presenting elements of the past, most namely the death of Howard Stark, we get a quick flash of a newspaper and can see that this was released on December 17th, 1991. This date has appeared throughout the MCU, and it was even in Iron Man 1 with a similar report. In Civil War we see the CCTV footage is dated the 16th of December 1991, so they were killed on this night, and then the newspaper was released the following day. This is likely also when Steve learned that Bucky had killed the Starks, which of course was a big point in Civil War. Speaking of Howard, in the first Avenger he remarks that Hydra won't be coming at them with a pocket knife. However, in this film, the Winter Soldier literally attacks them with a pocket knife at one point. Other cool little Easter eggs that we've noticed throughout our MCU binge is that Matthew Ellis appears for a split second as a target for Hydra. We learn in Iron Man 3 that he was the president, and this is a nice carryover for this film. Maria Hill is also spotted for a split second during this targeting scene, and we get a quick glimpse at Tony Stark, who is sat in the remodeled Avengers Tower. Doctor Strange is also name dropped as a target by Sitwell, and I don't know, something about this guy doesn't sit well with me. You having that? Now there's actually a hint that Sitwell is a two-faced character early on in the MCU, as when he first appeared in Thor he was shown in a way similar to how Gemini symbols often appear, which can be a symbol of duality. Senator Stern also appears from Iron Man 2, and there's some really nice carryovers from the other films. Now whilst the Hydra twist is one of the biggest "what?" moments in the MCU, there are some minor clues that things are up with them way before we find out. For example, when Nick Fury is shot in Cap's apartment, the radio responder to Agent 13 seems to know that this has happened before he's even told it, showing that this was indeed an inside job. If you watch the MCU in chronological order too, Captain Marvel inevitably pops up before this film. In that movie, Fury tells Carol that his friends call him Fury and his enemies call him Nick, and in this film, Alexander Pierce calls him Nick and not Fury, suggesting that he's indeed a bad guy. Also, when Captain America gets onto the elevator before the big action scene, there's a couple of things that hint at something being up with those that also get on board with him. This scene has been picked apart a lot, but one thing I haven't seen anyone point out is that we can see the men in suits wearing tactical boots instead of formal shoes. As they're just in an office building, they wouldn't need to wear these unless they were gearing up for a fight. Another cool little detail happens when Rumlow hits him with an electrified stun stick, and when doing this, both of them shake as the current passes through the two, showing that he was getting hurt just as much as Cap was. The location itself actually holds a lot of significance too. As Cap enters the elevator, we can actually see the Watergate complex in the background. This is of course where the infamous Watergate scandal happened that eventually led to the president resigning. Watergate involved the government spying on its own people, similar to how Hydra do, and this little Easter egg is a nice hint towards the movie's plot. An elevator scene just like this would reappear in Endgame, however Steve would use the things he learned in this movie to stop a fight breaking out, and the Hail Hydra line is still hilarious to me. If you've read Secret Empire then you'll know why, because man, the internet did not like that. The movie of course opens with us being introduced to Sam Wilson and Cap doing laps around him and saying "on your left." Maybe you should change his nickname to Laps instead of never mind. This of course makes a big return in Endgame, but one thing that you might not have noticed is that when Sam approaches Old Man Rogers at the lake bench, he does it from his left. Along with Sam, Nat also plays a big part in this movie as well, and she arguably becomes one of Steve's closest allies. She of course doesn't want to get rid of being BFFs with Hawkeye though, and you might have noticed in the film that she has an arrow necklace, which is of course a callback to Clint. Nick Fury plays a big part too, as not only is his death instrumental to some of the events in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but the lines he drops also play a much larger part in the overall universe. When first introducing Cap to the new helicarriers, he says that Stark helped to make them rotorless. Throughout our breakdowns, we've often talked about how Tony learns from his mistakes, and some great examples are how he uses an energy shield in Endgame after using a nano one in Infinity War caused him to deplete his armor. In the Avengers, we saw that he and Steve both wasted valuable time trying to restart one of the engines, and this led to Tony becoming stuck in a rotor and almost dying. Here the engines are now rotorless, so this can't happen in the future. Fury also talks about how the last time he trusted someone, he lost an eye, and this of course happened in Captain Marvel after he told Goose that he trusted him. Alexander Pierce too discusses a mission in Bogota, which Fury played a big part in. In Captain Marvel we learned that Fury's missions tended to be all set in countries with a B, and he said so far he'd been to Belfast, Bucharest, Belgrave and Budapest. He liked the B's because he can make it rhyme. When explaining how he was able to fake his own death, Fury mentions that Bruce Banner worked on a toxin that slowed down his heart rate. In The Incredible Hulk we learned an elevated heartbeat was one of the main factors that unleashed the beast, so it makes sense that he would have spent time trying to perfect a device to stop any chance of the rage monster coming out. Cap also jumps out of a plane with no parachute, and I think this might be a nod to The Incredible Hulk, in which Bruce does the same before landing in Harlem. He also did it in Ragnarok to much funnier effect. At the end of the movie, the Triskelion is destroyed, and a subtle nod to this actually pops up in Spider-Man Homecoming. When the class are on their field trip to Washington, they pass a sign that says Triskelion Cleanup, and this shows the damage caused by the building's collapse has had long-lasting repercussions. Natasha also tells Steve that he's a terrible liar, after he says he doesn't know what Fury was doing in his apartment. Pierce later asks him the same question, and he answers with the same thing, but in a slightly different way, taking advice from Nat.
Why was Fury in your apartment?
I don't know.
You're a terrible liar.
Captain, why was Nick in your apartment last night?
I don't know.
The movie ends with the heroes winning and taking down Hydra, but it sort of feels like a big loss. Nick Fury has to fake his own death, and at his grave we actually see on his tombstone that the quote is the same one that Jules dropped in Pulp Fiction from Ezekiel 25:17. Maria Hill gets a job at Stark Industries, and she actually has to take a lie detector test, probably because they know she's a spy, and as we learned, Hydra agents are everywhere. Bucky ventures to the museum to learn more about his past, and we can see that the Captain America mannequin has been removed after Cap took his uniform back. I hope Stan Lee didn't get fired for that, but it's a nice little consistency that ties the film together. The movie ends with a tease for Age of Ultron, and you should definitely go check out my breakdown of that film if you haven't already. Now obviously I know this movie is packed with Easter eggs and there's been a ton of breakdowns on it, so I hope you had fun with this and got to see some ones that you hadn't noticed before. If you did notice any that I didn't, then comment below and let me know, and please drop a thumbs up as it massively helps us out. Make sure you check out our breakdown of Captain Marvel at the end if you haven't, and make sure you subscribe as we go over a Marvel movie every week, so if you want to see a specific film's Easter eggs then it's probably either on our channel already or is coming up in the future. If you want to support us from as little as 99 cents a month, then please click the join button below. We massively appreciate it, and as a thank you get access to content early. If you want to come chat to us after the show, either follow us at Heavy Spoilers or click the Discord link in the description below. Those are the best ways to keep up to date with the channel, so hopefully we see you over there very soon. This is a channel for people who are super into superheroes, so if that's the kind of thing you like, hit subscribe. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. I've been Definition, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.